Welcome back to IntelliLogic's podcast. Today, I am speaking with Will Crawford, CEO of SmartStep Surgical. Will is revolutionizing the way surgery is done for those who need a step stool for height requirements and even more in the pipeline.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to meet you.
You as well. I am so excited to learn a little bit more about your product. You guys have a product under SmartStep Surgical that's called Surgestep, and just definitely revolutionizing how we thought about, the bed height and different heights of folks in the OR and really solving a problem there. So I would love to learn more about what you're doing and really what inspired you to bring this to market.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so like you said, the entity we formed is SmartStep Surgical, flagship product of Surgestep. And it really all just began, my background was spine implants as a rep, ultimately a distributor, and spent a ton of time in the OR. So as many reps would probably vouch for this, you end up becoming an extension of the circulator, and we like to hashtag it, repulator. But I was always on my hands and knees stacking these step stools. And my now partner, but at the time, surgeon at Stanford, was, she is 5'2", and jokingly she said, "I wish I just had a step that went up and down," as she leaned over when I'm on my hands and knees stacking her step stools. And so it started out as a joke. We said, "Hey, we should do that one day. We should form a company." I slept on it for a week, Googled it, couldn't find it. And so I came back to her and said, "Hey, I kind of want to do this. I don't think it exists. I think it's worth pursuing. Would you want to do it with me?" So she said yes, and here we are now. We didn't actually intend on commercializing it. We just thought that we'd file a patent and someone might want to buy it. But lo and behold, we took it as far as we are now, and now we're commercialized, and we're getting into hospitals and attending pre-orders. So it's been a lot of fun.
So that's the stage you're at right now is, getting the pre-orders. Have you delivered any of, okay, so you've got it in use currently.
So we have 12 units in the field. They were not built under an ISO certification. So we do have approval to go in facilities, but we can't deliver these as the final sales units. So we're letting customers use them. We're doing free trials, some places trialing longer than others. But through that, if they validate they like it, we've been offering, we call it early access program. And, select facilities have been putting in their purchase order. And once we receive that first production order, they'll be the first ones to get it.
Okay, awesome. So with this, from like a pain point standpoint, what do you think is going to be your biggest challenge in getting it into the facilities? Is it considered a capital equipment, or how is it looked at from their perspective?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it does get treated like capital, kind of the nature of the product. It's, it has battery. We do straddle that line of technical capital costs. So at MSRPs, falls right into what capital budgets normally are in the US. But, part of this early access program is we've been offering a discount, in turn for them placing the PO up front, but also, that discount takes them out of capital. So that helps a lot. We end up going through operational budget, but being a new product, ultimately a new category, a lot of hospitals, they need to protect themselves and make sure they're not buying something they're not going to use. Most of the facilities have been requiring a full-on trial. We do a minimum 2 weeks, sometimes longer. And right now it's just, surgeons that, are constantly dealing with steps is where attraction is.
Right. And from a Salesforce perspective, is it mainly you guys behind the scenes at the moment? Do you have feet on the ground talking about this with surgeons and facilities, or is that kind of where you're headed? Like that's your ramp up at this point?
It's a mix of both. So
Okay.
I'm fortunate, I have great network. We have, peers and friends and surgeons and distributors, over the years that I can call on and, ask them to give it a try. So we do have a mix. There are certain locations and opportunities. It's just been a direct interaction, whether it was through an acquaintance or just someone that we met at a spine meeting directly to the customer. And we also have a few distributors we're working with. We're really fortunate. We signed with Surge Medical Supply in New York. They're really big spine implant
Okay.
distributor, New York and New
Right.
Jersey. And then we have a great group in San Diego, another group in LA, another distributor in San Francisco Bay Area. And then we're talking to a few other distributors kind of Midwest. And we've been working with a couple smaller groups, reps in Denver and San Antonio. So we kind of have a bit of a hybrid, direct to customer and distributors, but it's a little tough giving the stage where we are to hire direct W-2 sales force just because we're bootstrapped and pretty lean on costs right now.
Lean at the moment, yes. So do you have a projection of, when you're kind of going to turn the next corner, or is it just sort of, wait and see at this point?
Turn next corner as far as hiring direct sales force
Yeah,
or
like just,
yeah.
making that next push with the sales force. Is it more so, when you get to that point where you've got more the product out there or you're able to deliver it, for usage? Is that kind of what you're waiting on at this point?
Yeah, I think we do want to hire a few direct employees to help with evaluations, and we want to offer a white glove service. So when we deliver these final sales units, it's going to be a fun onboarding. We meet them there, we unpackage, we do training and in services, and then we'll also have a service program where we're going to need someone to fly around and help support these units. But I don't think we'll ever go away from distribution. It's just they're successful for a reason. They've been in their prospective market for a long time. They have great relationships. They're not new to bringing new products in through a value analysis committee. So I don't think we'll move away from distribution at all.
And I'm sure you've done that your fair share of times in your background in medical device as well, in the spine
Yeah, I
world.
see both
Yeah.
sides of it, so I know what to expect. I know all the really good distributors are very busy, so I know what to expect on the bandwidth. But I also know that, being a professional, you have touch points not just with the surgeon. You're able to navigate through that whole healthcare system. So you know what the process is for capital acquisition or operational. You know how to navigate the relationships with every other department, whether it's the chief nursing officer or SPD. You kind of know your way around. So it's really helpful to kind of leverage those relationships at each new market.
Absolutely. Yeah, and a lot of our listeners are medical device distributors, so that's kind of why I was curious in asking that question, obviously, just to kind of see what, even moving forward into the future, what your goals were from, how you're wanting to get the mark or the product out in the market more, if it's going to continue to involve independent distribution groups and that kind of thing. But it sounds like it definitely will, or at least be a hybrid, as you move through the process. So,
Yeah. I one more point. I think all the distributors will be privy to this. Even direct hire, kind of on the Salesforce end, it's more of a support agent as opposed to replacement. I know a lot of companies will have a regional specialist that goes
mhm.
around and helps the distribution network just generate leads and sales support. So that's kind of more the intent as opposed to cherry picking certain markets with direct sales.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that that's genius and it's helpful, to kind of have that direct access to somebody else that can be of support in the field. Now, obviously, you made a big jump from being a spine rep for many years, and then you took a leap of faith, and you're doing this now. And so, if there's anybody listening that maybe has an inkling to do something like what you did, are there any cautionary tales you have, or any words of motivation? Like, I know you're still seeing it through, and obviously, you're having a lot of success, and you've got a product that has been, I know when we spoke the first time, just getting to know one another, you said it's changed quite a bit since that first mock-up that you had. So, any real, like, pearls from that phase that you've gone through that you could provide?
Well, I don't think we have enough time to go through all the hurdles and
Yeah,
unforeseen
right.
circumstances we've been through, but yeah, no, I'd love to share a few kind of top tips and pearls. One, if there's an idea that's keeping you up at night, um, I know what it's like to let it linger and you keep thinking about it, and then the FOMO of not doing it, but you're scared to move forward. I think the best thing is just take action on things that don't require capital and try to be your biggest critic in the beginning before you lose time, effort, and resources. So it could be as simple as, just making sure it's not already commercially available. Google's free. On a patent standpoint, you can do Google patents. That's still free. And then try to do your back of the napkin business plan, figure out if there's even a market for it. Is it worth pursuing? And you could do that, just trying to get a hip shot on what a comparable product might be, what that cost is, and then what that category is on the resale to make sure it's even worth pursuing. um, and then you could take it further from there. But at that point, if you're committed and you're excited about it, and then being real with yourself, what are you going to compensate or give up to keep it moving forward? Who's going to do what? And if you have life outside of work, obviously something has to give. So you have to try to put a plan forward for your own time management. How is it going to be seen to move the needle and keep progressing?
Right. Well, and I know, Will, I know you know this, but a lot of what we chat about and what our business is built on is like the AI side of things, right? And I think what you just said hits on utilizing, I mean, lean into the free AI information you can get. I mean, go into Chat GPT and like you said, I mean, we still use that catchphrase of the back of the napkin kind of business plan, but you can go into AI and come up with a business plan and just really quick, versus what we've done in the past when we have ideas. So in fleshing that out and utilizing the tools that are free to you. You talked about like the Google patent side of things. So just kind of piecing it all together from there, but certainly just from a motivational standpoint, like you said, if you've got something that's keeping you up at night, if you're the one, whether it be medical related or not, but you notice a need in the operating room or in the healthcare space or really anywhere, you don't want to be that guy kicking yourself in 10 years when you see somebody else did
Really?
it, right?
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Yeah, and the other side of
well,
that, you also don't want to jump in and lose 50 grand and realize, I probably should have done a little more homework before spending money on it. So, yeah, I think it's a balance of both items, making sure you don't miss out on an opportunity you're passionate about, but also don't go in blind.
yeah, no, that's good advice. I think just really the bottom line is anticipating, some of the roadblocks too, like some of the bumps in the road you're going to have, and it's not going to be, you're not just going to have this idea and write it down and have your first prototype, and that's going to be what you take to market, right? So it's going to
No,
be a
that's a good point. That's one of the
yeah,
bigger items I've learned is the idea is worth, X amount. The implementation and effort to bring it to market is a whole nother factor. That's really where all the work is.
did you have like a specific review group of folks that you brought the product to kind of give you feedback, like, like a peer review of, or did you bring it into facilities that you have access to kind of get feedback and that's how you were analyzing the changes, or how did you do that?
Yeah, no, we did a couple different things. So obviously, your friends and family, you kind of test just the idea, the concept.
Yeah.
And then you try to go to people that, other than your mom, that are going to pat you on the back no matter what. You actually want to go to people that are going to be critical to get a real honest answer. So if you stress test it, get enough feedback, you kind of know whether or not there's traction. And then going back to that market viability. So if you can factor in what those user needs are, the concept that you want to develop, and then look at it like a UI UX perspective, kind of engineering lingo, and then figure out what that category pricing might be. And if you know that it's viable, worth pursuing, I would also caution you if there isn't a category pricing, you can't just make up that price and go after it because it works for you. I would recommend leveraging, being a distributor, leveraging some of the relationships you have with the value analysis committee, people that are actually buying these things on a daily. They've seen everything under the sun come in through the hospital. They constantly compare prices, apples to apples, even apples to oranges. So whether it needs to be a structured paid consulting conversation or if they're willing to just give you honest feedback off the cuff, I would recommend doing that because then you're going to know whether the product that you have at the price point you think that you want to sell it for, if someone's actually going to pay for it, it's a little different than a user wanting it because in healthcare, your customers, your direct customers that are users aren't necessarily always the ones paying for it. So I think just trying to find that medium of where your ASP is going to be and validate that there's a market for it.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I mean, having those relationships for folks that are already distributors, that's huge because they can tap into that intel from their connections, whether it be, like you said, on a paid consultant basis or just getting some insight and feedback. So that makes a lot of sense. Obviously at the end of the day, it's all about the bottom line for the facility and they've got to make the best choices there. Um, so with that being said, you've obviously filled or you're filling in the process of it this need and solving an issue in the operating room. Do you guys have with SmartStep Surgical anything else in the pipeline? Any other down the road visions that you have for other things under your umbrella?
Absolutely. We actually have a whole slew of products we want to develop. And we've
Awesome.
really kind of honed in on the category. We want to do class one devices. We also are focused on ergonomics and reducing slip, strips, and falls in the OR. So come to find out, number two workplace hazard HCP related injury are based on slip, strips, and falls. It's about 13% of reported injuries. And you can imagine how many times you've had a near miss, a fall, or hit your head and you haven't reported it. So I would imagine that number is much higher than what gets reported. So that's kind of where we set our focus area on. Being coming from spine, it's really easy to get excited about other widgets. And I have kind of worked with some of my past customers and just to help them kind of take an idea a little further. But we have about 8 products that we want to pursue development wise that fit our theme, our core focus, and our core mission. But the biggest thing right now is we just want to make sure that Surgestep has a successful launch and not get over our skis from a capital expenditure standpoint.
Right. Yeah. It's not inexpensive to bring something to the market, right? And develop
No,
it. So,
yeah, product
so you
development
have
and marketing are really expensive.
yeah, yes, exactly. And we're all rooting for you that this is obviously going to pay dividends. So it's going to pay off, and you've gotten some amazing feedback thus far. So now, if there is someone listening that wanted to reach out to you or get some more information on Surgestep, obviously they can look at your website. But what would be the best way for them to go about getting in touch with you personally or your team to see about, well, hey, I'm a distributor and I maybe have a surgeon or a facility that I think would be really good to chat with about this?
By all means, yeah, it could be anything really. You can reach out through the website. I don't know if you want to
Okay,
share my email in the show notes,
I will
LinkedIn.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty responsive either way. But yeah, I'd love to entertain any other opportunities for sure.
Okay, amazing. And are you focusing in any specific like geographical area or is it just all of the US at the moment?
I mean, it's all the US. We do like academic centers for a variety of reasons, but our product seems to fill a void and a need really well and adds value at academic centers. So that's kind of a no-brainer. Yeah, if anyone has a surgeon or a customer or a group that's excited about it, it doesn't have to be academic centers, and geographically, we're obviously very open.
Okay, very good. Yeah, well, I can just say that as a vertically challenged individual, I can appreciate a step stool. If I were a surgeon, it would be a problem, especially, who I was with. So, um, I'm excited to learn more about you guys and, just see the trajectory of what happens in the future with Surgistep. And I think that there's obviously a huge need. And, I've just chatted with a few folks since you and I first met, and they're like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Oh, yeah, I've
Yeah.
stacked a step stool before, and that's like things that are just like a common theme. So it's those moments where someone like you has that light bulb moment and just takes the leap of faith. So that's pretty awesome. But I'm anxious to see what else you have in these 8 other projects coming, and maybe we can chat again, as those come to fruition. And I will put Will's contact information right here on the screen, and if anybody wants to reach out to him for further information, I'm sure he would love that. So I really appreciate you coming on, Will. It was a pleasure to chat with you. And yeah, everybody just check out Surgestep's website. It is, let's see, smartstepsurgical.com. And assuming that is where any of the other innovations would be as well, right, as you continue to develop.
Yep, they're not publicly listed yet, but one will launch in about a couple months, and then we'll just keep rolling them out from there.
Okay, amazing. Well, I wish you guys the best. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Definitely. Thanks for having me, and nice meeting you.
You as well. Thanks, Will.
Thank you. Bye, Karrie.